My best friend's mom said, "I'm not beautiful anymore." What I did next left her speechless. Drones zipped silently above, delivering packages to apartments and offices, while holographic billboards showed smiling faces of humans and aliens together, promoting the ideals of unity and cooperation. But inside a small apartment near the top of a quiet residential building, none of that mattered. Ethan adjusted the collar of his jacket and knocked gently on the door. It swung open before he could knock a second time. Mara, his best friend's mother, stood there with a soft smile, though her eyes carried a weight he had never seen before. "Ethan," she said, stepping aside, "come in." The apartment smelled of coffee and old books. Shelves lined the walls, filled with papers, star charts, and devices Ethan didn't recognize. Mara gestured toward a worn armchair by the window. "Sit," she said, settling into a chair opposite him. Her hands rested on her knees, calm but deliberate. Ethan sat and tried to break the silence. "It's been a while," he said. Mara gave a small nod. "It has. Life keeps moving, doesn't it?" Her voice was gentle, almost wistful. Ethan looked at her carefully. She hadn't changed much since he was a child, but there was a quietness to her now. It wasn't age, not entirely. She had always been a woman with poise and presence. It was something else, a subtle sadness that hadn't been there before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, a soft drizzle began, tapping against the window pane. Ethan followed Mara's gaze to the holographic news display on her wall. A broadcast was playing. Aliens in flowing robes, praising symmetry and perfection, speaking of beauty as if it were a currency. Mara's eyes didn't leave the screen. After a long pause, she spoke softly, almost to herself. "I'm not beautiful anymore." Ethan blinked. Her words felt fragile, almost out of place in the modern, bustling city. He could see the pain in her eyes, not in the words themselves, but in the quiet acceptance behind them. "What do you mean?" he asked gently. She turned her gaze to him, and he saw something he hadn't noticed before: vulnerability. "I used to feel confident. People respected my work, my ideas, but now the world seems to value perfection over substance, symmetry over experience, and her voice faltered. "I feel like I don't matter." Ethan took a breath. He had seen the world change since first contact with the alien alliance, but he hadn't realized the subtle ways it had affected humans emotionally. The aliens admired humans for ingenuity, but they valued symmetry, youth, and flawless appearances. Anything that didn't fit their pattern seemed less important, less meaningful. He leaned forward. "Mara, you don't see yourself the way others do. They can't measure what humans carry inside. They can't see the strength in your decisions, the courage in your choices. They don't understand the way you've helped people when no one else could." Mara shook her head. "You sound like one of those motivational speakers." Her lips curved into a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Maybe," Ethan said, smiling back, "but I mean it. Humans are special, not because of how we look, but because of what we do. You've saved more lives than the aliens will ever understand. You've guided people through crises they couldn't even imagine." Her hands trembled slightly. "I don't feel special. I feel ordinary." "Ordinary?" Ethan echoed. "You call the person who taught the alien diplomats to trust humans ordinary?" He paused. "Mara, you were part of the team that saved millions during the first contact crisis. You negotiated with beings who didn't even know what compassion meant. And you did it without them realizing it." Her lips pressed together and she looked down. Ethan could see the memory of those days reflected in her eyes, the sleepless nights, the impossible calculations, the moments when failure could have meant disaster. She had carried it all quietly, humbly, without ever asking for recognition. "They won't see me the way you do," she said softly. "Even if I did something important, they only care about perfection, beauty, youth." Ethan's mind raced. How could he show her what she couldn't see herself? Words weren't enough. She needed proof, something undeniable. He remembered the human archives, the secret database compiled after first contact, containing images and recordings that the aliens had initially dismissed as irrelevant. He had never shared it with anyone outside the research team. "I have an idea," he said. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Mara looked at him uncertain. "Ethan, it's late, and it's raining outside." "I promise it'll be worth it," he said. "Just trust me." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right." They left the apartment, stepping into the drizzle. The city seemed different at night, quieter, more intimate. Neon reflections danced on the wet streets, but Ethan didn't notice. He was focused on Mara, her eyes tracing the familiar skyline, her posture tense. The human archive was located in a small, secure facility that Ethan had access to as part of his research. They passed through biometric locks and security scanners until they reached the main chamber, a large, dimly lit room filled with holoscreens and recording devices. Ethan tapped a few keys on a terminal, and the room filled with images. Mara gasped softly. The screens showed humans of all ages, races, and appearances. There were elderly people with lined faces laughing after surviving disasters, children rebuilding shattered communities, people carrying others to safety during emergencies. Each image captured raw emotion, courage, and resilience. These were considered irrelevant," Mara whispered, moving closer to the screens. Ethan nodded. "The aliens didn't understand it. They couldn't measure what humans create from struggle. They couldn't quantify laughter, hope, or endurance. But we see it. And it matters." She stared at the screen, eyes wide. "All of this, humans, we did this." "Yes," Ethan said. "And not just here, across colonies, across alliances. Every act of resilience, every moment of courage, it defines us more than symmetry ever could. You were part of this. You guided people even when they didn't realize it. You helped humans survive when no one else could." Her voice trembled. I didn't think my life mattered anymore." Ethan reached out, placing a hand over hers. "It does, more than you know. Look at yourself, Mara. You've carried so much knowledge, hope, courage. You've been a lighthouse for people in darkness. And that's beauty no alien can ever measure." For the first time in years, Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She looked at Ethan, a mixture of disbelief and hope on her face. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," Ethan said. "Just see it, that's enough for now." She stayed there, gazing at the screens, the weight slowly lifting from her shoulders. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but it no longer felt heavy. It was cleansing, washing away the self-doubt that had clung to her for years. Ethan watched her silently. He didn't need words, the images spoke for themselves. Humanity was imperfect, aging, flawed, and yet somehow extraordinary. As Mara turned to him, a small, genuine smile broke across her face. "I never realized we're more than they think." "We always have been," Ethan replied, "and we always will be." For a long time they sat there in silence, surrounded by images of humanity at its best and worst. Mara's hands rested on her knees, no longer trembling. Her eyes reflected the flickering holoscreens, a mix of pride, wonder, and rediscovered confidence. Outside, the city hummed on, oblivious to the quiet revelation in that small room. But inside, something had changed. Mara no longer saw herself through the lens of alien expectations. She saw herself, and through that, she began to see humanity anew. Ethan knew this was only the beginning. There was more to show her, more to prove, but for tonight it was enough. Humanity was alive, resilient, and undeniably beautiful, and Mara was a part of that. The next morning, the city seemed different. The drizzle had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the early sunlight. People moved with purpose, aliens and humans side by side, yet there was a quiet rhythm to the world that felt almost peaceful. Mara sat at her small kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands. Ethan sat opposite her, observing quietly. The night before had changed something in her, a small spark, almost imperceptible, but it was there. "I kept thinking about what you showed me last night," Mara said finally, her voice soft. All those people, their struggles, their victories, it's inspiring. Ethan nodded. It is. And the thing is, the aliens don't understand why it's inspiring. They can measure perfection, symmetry, numbers, efficiency, but they can't measure meaning, courage, or hope. Mara frowned. I've always thought humans were fragile. We make mistakes, we fail, we age, we get hurt. I never imagined that this fragility could be our strength. Ethan smiled. It's not just fragility, it's resilience. Humans adapt. We survive where others might give up. We create meaning in chaos. That's something no alien algorithm can predict. Mara leaned back, her eyes distant. I used to believe that knowledge was everything. That solving a problem, calculating the exact probability would make the difference. But sometimes it's the human touch, isn't it? Yes, Ethan said. Exactly. Think about the first contact crisis. You were there, guiding humans and aliens alike. You didn't just rely on calculations. You used your understanding of people, your empathy, your ability to see beyond the numbers. That's what saved lives. Mara's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. I never realized the aliens would study us, not just for science but for human behavior. They did, Ethan said. Secretly. They recorded human responses to stress, leadership, compassion, and what they discovered confused them. Humans respond to imperfection in ways they cannot predict. They can't explain why someone who looks ordinary or flawed can inspire hope and action in others. They tried to model it but failed. Mara looked up sharply. So they studied me? Ethan hesitated. Yes. Your role during the evacuation, your calm voice, your decisions under pressure, it had an effect on everyone, not just humans. Some aliens started noticing things they didn't understand, and they still don't. Her eyes widened. I thought my contributions were small. Insignificant. They weren't, Ethan said firmly. You think humans are ordinary because the aliens value symmetry over substance. But humans have something the aliens cannot replicate. Creativity under pressure, resilience, the ability to turn failure into strength. You embody that, Mara. She shook her head slowly, still unsure. I can't believe it. All this time, I thought I had nothing to offer because I don't look like the perfect humans they praise. That's exactly it, Ethan said. Beauty isn't what you think it is. Humans' beauty isn't in our symmetry. It's in our choices, our endurance, our willingness to care when it's hardest. That's the kind of beauty no alien has ever measured. Mara stayed silent, processing his words. The weight of years of self-doubt pressed against her, yet something inside her began to shift. She felt a quiet warmth, a sense that perhaps she had underestimated herself, underestimated all humans. Ethan, she said finally, how do you know all this? That humans, that I, are special in ways they don't understand. He smiled softly. I've been studying it for years. Humans leave traces of themselves that the aliens can't predict. Even our mistakes, our failures, have meaning. Our emotions, our struggles, they create ripples in the universe that no algorithm can fully capture. Mara leaned forward, curiosity sparking in her eyes. Ripples? Yes, Ethan said. Every time you comfort someone, take a risk, make a choice because it's right instead of efficient, that's a ripple. It spreads. Humans inspire each other and even aliens, though they can't explain it. Your life, your actions, they've created ripples. She was quiet for a long moment, looking at her hands. So, maybe my age, my wrinkles, the mistakes I've made, they aren't marks of failure. Not at all, Ethan said. They're evidence. Evidence that you've lived, learned, and endured. That's something the aliens can't replicate. They might admire perfection, but perfection alone doesn't save lives, doesn't inspire hope. Humans do. A soft smile formed on Mara's face, fragile but genuine. I never thought of it like that. Ethan leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. That's because the aliens don't show it to us. Their culture is so focused on perfection, they dismiss what's imperfect, and humans are full of what they call imperfections. But that's where our strength lies. That's why they secretly study us. They can't explain why humans endure, why humans care, why humans inspire. Mara nodded slowly, the weight in her chest beginning to lift. She took a deep breath. You're saying humans are special not because we're perfect, but because we're human. Yes, Ethan said, smiling. Exactly, and that includes you. Your work, your courage, your compassion, all of it is part of what makes humans remarkable. Even if the aliens can't see it, it matters. To us, to the future, to the universe. She looked out the window at the city below, watching people move through the streets, unaware of the lessons humanity carried within them. I feel small sometimes. Like my life hasn't mattered. You're not small, Ethan said. Your life has mattered more than you realize. Look at what you've done guiding people during crises, helping humans adapt, showing leadership when it was needed most. You've left traces of yourself that will last far longer than any image or broadcast of perfection. Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of disbelief and hope. I never thought I could be important. You already are, Ethan said softly. And the more you realize it, the more humans will continue to inspire others. Even aliens can't explain why humans matter. That's our advantage, our uniqueness, our beauty. She looked at him, a small laugh escaping her lips. Beauty, I used to think that meant looking a certain way. I never imagined it could mean endurance, courage, and the ability to inspire. Humans are beautiful, Ethan said, because we create meaning where none exists, because we keep going when everything says to stop, because we care even when it's hard. That's what makes us extraordinary, and that includes you. Mara sat quietly, letting his words sink in. The morning sun streamed through the window, highlighting the lines on her face, signs of age and experience, not imperfection. She realized she had spent too many years measuring herself by standards that weren't hers to meet. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. There's more I want to show you, he said. Something that will make it undeniable how humans have inspired aliens without them understanding why. Mara raised an eyebrow. Aliens? Inspired them. I find that hard to believe. It's true, Ethan said, eyes bright. There are recordings, studies, and observations the aliens made during crises, some of which you were a part of. They couldn't explain why humans performed as they did, why morale improved when humans took certain actions. They tried to model it mathematically but failed. That's the point. Humans create meaning no algorithm can predict. Her curiosity sparked. Mara leaned forward. Show me. Ethan tapped the device, and a series of holographic recordings appeared in the air between them. The first showed a group of humans and aliens trapped in a collapsed building. Mara saw herself in the crowd, younger, determined, giving instructions calmly as people followed her lead. The aliens in the scene looked confused at first, but soon they moved with purpose, inspired by her calm presence. The aliens recorded this, Mara whispered. Yes, Ethan said, and they still don't understand it. Your calm, your decisions, they caused a ripple. You inspired them without even realizing it, and you weren't alone. Humans have been doing this for centuries, inspiring, leading, comforting, in ways that no alien can measure. Mara watched the holograms, awe and disbelief mixing on her face. I never imagined I could have mattered like this. You do, Ethan said, and not just to humans but to the universe. We may be flawed, imperfect, aging, but that's what makes us special. That's what makes us human. She stayed there, gazing at the holograms, letting the realization wash over her. For the first time in years, Mara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The rain outside had stopped, the city now bathed in sunlight. But inside, a deeper light had been ignited, the light of understanding, of self-worth, of human resilience. Mara no longer saw herself as ordinary. She saw herself as part of something extraordinary. Ethan smiled, quietly proud. This is only the beginning, he said. There's more to show you, more to prove. Humanity is full of these moments, these ripples of influence that even the aliens can't explain. Mara nodded slowly, a small, genuine smile on her face. I want to see more. And for the first time in years, she felt ready to believe in herself, in humanity, and in the beauty that comes not from perfection, but from meaning, courage, and endurance. The hum of the archive room greeted them as Ethan and Mara entered. It was quiet except for the soft clicks of holographic projectors and the distant buzz of servers maintaining records stretching back decades. The walls were lined with glowing panels, each containing recordings, images, and data of humans interacting with aliens themselves and their environment. Ethan guided Mara to the center of the room. "This," he said, sweeping his hand over the array of hollow screens, "is the human archive. Most of this was collected after first contact. The aliens studied us, but they dismissed almost all of it as irrelevant because it didn't fit their patterns. But we know better." Mara's eyes widened. "This is massive," Ethan smiled, "and it's only a small part of what's stored here. Watch." He tapped a panel and a hologram rose in the air between them. The first recording showed a disaster relief mission on a human colony orbiting a distant star. The planet's surface had been ripped apart by a sudden magnetic storm. Humans moved through the wreckage, carrying supplies, rescuing injured aliens, and helping each other navigate the debris. Mara leaned closer. She recognized some of the faces, colleagues, volunteers, and friends. And then she saw herself. Younger, determined, shouting instructions calmly even as chaos raged around her. She directed humans and aliens alike, guiding them to safety without hesitation. "The aliens recorded this," Mara whispered. Her voice carried a mixture of disbelief and awe. "Yes," Ethan said, "and they were confused. They couldn't model why morale increased when humans took leadership. They couldn't explain why calm decisions, encouragement, and simple gestures of care inspired everyone to act effectively. It's human psychology. They didn't understand it." Mara studied the hologram. She had never thought of herself as extraordinary. She had done her job, she had guided people to safety, but she had never considered the impact. Watching it now, she realized it had been profound. "This, I didn't know," Mara said softly. "I thought my contributions were small. I never imagined it could have mattered this much." Ethan shook his head. "Small contributions aren't human. Every choice you made created a ripple. Every time you helped someone, you influenced not just them, but others around them. That's something humans do better than any other species we've encountered. That's why the aliens study us, even if they can't explain it." Mara looked at another panel. This one showed an alien research colony in crisis. A mechanical failure threatened the life support systems, and panic was spreading. A group of humans, led by individuals she recognized, including Ethan himself in his younger years, stepped in. They calmly assessed the situation, coordinated with alien engineers, and restored the systems. The aliens in the footage were perplexed. Their data showed efficiency was not maximized, and errors were made along the way, but the humans had adapted, improvising solutions that the aliens couldn't predict. Within hours, the crisis was over, and alien lives had been saved. "They can't understand improvisation," Mara said, her voice filled with wonder. "They rely on perfect logic, but humans, we adapt." "Exactly," Ethan said. "Humans turn mistakes into solutions. We create meaning in chaos. That's what makes us, well, remarkable. And no alien can replicate it." Mara moved from one panel to another. The archive contained moments of compassion, humans comforting alien refugees, teaching them languages, and helping them adjust to new environments. Humans celebrating small victories, sharing stories, and finding joy despite adversity. There were failures too, accidents, losses, mistakes, but even in those, Mara saw courage and determination. These are just ordinary people," she said, almost incredulously. "They don't look special. They are, Ethan said firmly, because the aliens don't see what humans create in these moments. They focus on symmetry, efficiency, and predictability. They ignore the intangible things, empathy, courage, inspiration. But those are the things that matter most. Mara paused at a recording showing a human teacher on a distant space station. She was helping young alien children learn mathematics, using patience, encouragement, and humor. The children struggled at first but slowly began to understand, their eyes lighting up with comprehension and joy. Ethan gestured to the screen. "See this. That teacher's impact can't be quantified. She is perfect in the alien sense. She makes mistakes, fumbles sometimes, and yet the results are extraordinary. The children remember her, the aliens remember her, and even the observers from other planets recorded their reactions. That's human influence. You can't put it in numbers, but it changes lives." Mara's gaze shifted to a recording of herself again. She was older now, at a conference for interspecies diplomacy. Her presentation was calm, precise, but what stood out was how she listened, really listened, to alien representatives, understanding their concerns, fears, and hopes. She mediated disputes, calmed tensions, and inspired cooperation. The aliens had noted her presence, studied her responses, and been unable to model why her influence had such a strong effect on morale and decision-making. The archive revealed multiple examples of humans like her, quietly shaping the course of events without ever seeking recognition. "I never knew," Mara said, her voice trembling. "I always thought humans were weak, that our mistakes, our flaws, our age made us irrelevant." But she looked around at the recordings. "We're extraordinary," Ethan smiled. "Yes, Mara, extraordinary in ways no alien can measure. Our imperfections, our choices, our persistence, that's what gives us power. That's the beauty of being human." She looked at him, a mixture of awe and uncertainty in her eyes. "Even me." "Especially you," Ethan said. "You've lived through crises, guided people, inspired trust and hope. You think you're ordinary because the aliens value symmetry over substance, youth over experience, perfection over wisdom. But humans value meaning, endurance, and courage. That's where you shine." Mara sank into a chair, letting the realization wash over her. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of self-doubt begin to lift. She understood now that beauty wasn't measured in symmetry, perfection, or youth. Beauty was in resilience, in courage, in the ability to inspire and care for others, even in imperfection. Ethan moved to another panel, activating a recording from a joint human-alien mission on a distant planet. A natural disaster had struck, and humans and aliens worked together to evacuate civilians. Mara watched as humans made decisions, comforted those in fear, and adapted to unexpected challenges. The aliens were visibly confused by human actions. Their models predicted chaos, yet humans organized, comforted, and acted decisively, saving countless lives. "The aliens don't understand this," Ethan said. "They've never faced a species that thrives on adaptability and empathy. They admire us, but they can't explain why. They don't know how to measure the kind of impact humans have." Mara leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the hologram. "It's astonishing. Even in chaos, humans inspire. Even in fear, humans lead. Even in mistakes, humans find meaning." "Yes," Ethan said, "and it's all around us. Humans create ripples, small, quiet, invisible sometimes, but powerful. And you've created ripples too." She looked at him, a soft smile forming. "Ripples, I never thought my life could matter in that way. I thought my age, my mistakes, my imperfections made me irrelevant." Ethan shook his head. "They don't. They made you human, and humans are extraordinary." Mara let out a deep breath, feeling a quiet sense of pride and wonder for the first time in years. She realized that the alien obsession with symmetry and perfection had never been her measure. Her true value was in what she had done, the lives she had touched, and the courage she had shown. Ethan smiled, seeing the change in her eyes. "This is just the beginning," he said. "There's more to see, more to understand. Humanity has stories, actions, and influences that even the aliens can't explain, and you are part of that story." Mara nodded slowly, her mind racing. "I want to see more. I want to understand." Ethan activated another hologram, this one showing humans working alongside aliens in diplomacy, science, and exploration. They laughed, argued, solved problems, and comforted each other. Every scene reflected the same truth. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of inspiring hope. "You see," Ethan said softly, "humans are measured by what we create, not by what we look like. And no alien, no matter how advanced, can measure our ability to inspire, endure, and care." Mara's eyes glistened. She felt a sense of belonging, pride, and a renewed understanding of herself. I never realized. All this time I thought I was ordinary. But humans were extraordinary." "Yes," Ethan said, "and so are you." For a long moment they watched the archive, letting the lessons of human resilience, courage, and influence sink in. Mara understood now that her life, her choices, her care, her courage, had mattered far more than she had ever imagined. She was part of something larger, something the universe could not ignore or replicate. And in that quiet archive, surrounded by the echoes of countless human actions, Mara began to believe in the extraordinary power of humanity and in herself. The sunlight filtered softly through the archive's tall windows, casting patterns of light across the holographic panels. Mara stood still, her eyes absorbing the images of humans acting with courage, empathy, and ingenuity. Ethan noticed her expression, a mixture of awe, wonder, and disbelief. "There's one more thing I want to show you," Ethan said, moving to a panel at the far end of the room. "Something that will really make you understand." Mara turned to him, curiosity sparking. "What is it?" Ethan tapped the holographic controls. A recording appeared, showing a high-level meeting from years earlier, a meeting she had attended but had long forgotten. Humans and aliens sat together discussing the safety of newly colonized planets. The atmosphere was tense. A recent cosmic storm had damaged several colonies and blame was being assigned. But one person stood out, Mara herself. She was calmer than she remembered. Her voice was soft, measured, but every word carried weight. She addressed both humans and aliens, listening carefully to their fears, acknowledging their concerns, and proposing practical, compassionate solutions. Ethan activated the alien observation data alongside the recording. Lines of code, graphs, and numerical analysis scrolled across the hologram. The aliens had documented her behavior in incredible detail. Her tone, gestures, facial expressions, pauses, and eye contact. They had tried to model her influence mathematically to understand why people followed her advice, why morale rose, why disputes settled so quickly, and they had failed. Mara leaned closer, astonished. They studied me." "Yes," Ethan said softly. "They tried to explain your impact through their logic, their algorithms. But they couldn't. They couldn't predict how your calm voice would stabilize both humans and aliens during a crisis. They couldn't understand why your decisions inspired trust and cooperation. You baffled them in the best way." Mara's fingers trembled slightly as she traced the holographic figures. I didn't think I mattered that much. I thought I was just doing my job." "That's the thing," Ethan said. "You weren't just doing your job. You were showing the best of humanity. You were demonstrating empathy, resilience, and leadership, things the aliens couldn't measure. And that is what makes humans extraordinary." A faint smile appeared on Mara's lips. "I never realized. I thought our value was in what the aliens could see, but it's not. It's in what we create, what we inspire, what we endure." "Yes," Ethan said. "Humans leave ripples in the universe that no alien algorithm can predict. Every choice, every act of courage, every moment of care, it creates influence. And you, Mara, have created ripples that still reach today." Mara turned to him, eyes wide. Ripples, even I can create ripples. You already have, Ethan said firmly. Think back to the evacuation missions, the diplomatic negotiations, the times you guided people through fear and uncertainty. Every decision, every word, every calm gesture had an impact far beyond what you imagined. The aliens noticed it, even if they couldn't understand it. She swallowed hard, a lump forming in her throat. And all this time I thought my age, my mistakes made me less valuable. Ethan shook his head. No, they made you human, and humans are extraordinary because of it. Imperfections, struggles, endurance, that's what makes us remarkable. And that's why the aliens study us secretly. They don't know how we do it, but they can't ignore it. Mara studied the holograms, seeing herself in moments she had long forgotten. Her calm voice directing evacuations, her hands guiding terrified humans and aliens alike, her quiet reassurance that kept morale high, all of it had mattered, more than she had ever realized. I never thought my life could have such meaning, she whispered. It does, Ethan said. And it's not just your life. It's all of humanity. We've influenced worlds, inspired aliens, and survived crises that no one else could. Our beauty isn't in our appearance or our symmetry. It's in our resilience, our choices, and our ability to inspire hope. Mara felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of pride and wonder she hadn't felt in years. She had always measured herself by standards set by others, aliens who valued perfection over substance, youth over wisdom, symmetry over meaning. Now she understood that her true value lay in what she had done, the lives she had touched, and the courage she had shown. Ethan tapped another panel. The hologram changed to show alien diplomats in discussion. Lines of data scrolled alongside their expressions, documenting their confusion, admiration, and hesitation. The aliens had never encountered a species that could inspire confidence, trust, and cooperation in unpredictable ways. They had tried to model it, but their algorithms failed repeatedly. They can't understand us, Mara said softly. No, Ethan said. They can't. And that's why humans are special. We create meaning where none exists. We inspire hope where others see despair. We endure where others give up. That's what makes us human and extraordinary. Mara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She realized now that her perception of herself had been clouded by doubt and comparison. She had thought her value depended on appearances, on perfection, on alien approval. But her true value had always been in her actions, her courage, and her ability to inspire. She turned to Ethan, a quiet determination in her eyes. So, the aliens couldn't measure my influence. They didn't understand why people followed me. They didn't know my worth. That's right, Ethan said, and that's the point. Human value isn't determined by algorithms or appearances. It's determined by what we create, the hope we inspire, the courage we show, and the lives we touch. That's something no alien can replicate. Mara looked back at the holograms, at the countless humans and aliens whose lives had been shaped by human decisions and empathy. She realized that every quiet act of kindness, every brave choice, every moment of resilience, it had all mattered. I think I understand now, Mara said, her voice soft but steady. Beauty isn't what I thought it was. It's not about symmetry, youth, or perfection. It's endurance, courage, influence, and humanity. Ethan nodded, a proud smile on his face. Exactly. And you, Mara, are living proof of that. You've created ripples that will last far longer than any alien record of perfection. That's what makes humans extraordinary, and that includes you. Mara took a deep breath, feeling a sense of pride and clarity she hadn't experienced in years. She realized that her life, her choices, and her courage had mattered far more than she had ever imagined. She had been looking at herself through the wrong lens, one set by others who couldn't understand her true value. Now she saw herself clearly. She was resilient. She was courageous. She inspired others without even realizing it. She was human, and that was extraordinary. Ethan moved to the final panel, showing a recording of a multi-species mission to a distant planet. Humans and aliens worked together to prevent a catastrophic environmental collapse. The aliens followed human guidance in crucial moments, unsure why it worked, yet compelled to obey. Humans adapted, improvised, and led with empathy. Mara's presence was noted again, calm, steady, and influential. "This," Ethan said softly, "is what humans do. We turn challenges into meaning. We inspire, we endure, we care. And we leave ripples no one can measure." Mara's eyes shone with understanding. "Even the aliens, they can't measure us. They can't predict our impact." "That's right," Ethan said. "And that's why humanity will always matter. Our value isn't in perfection. It's in resilience, courage, and influence. That's what makes us beautiful, and that's what makes you, Mara, extraordinary." For the first time in years, Mara felt a profound sense of self-worth. She had doubted herself for so long, measuring her value against standards that were never meant for her. Now, she understood the truth. Her life, her choices, and her courage had mattered in ways that no alien or human could fully measure. And in that moment, Mara felt a quiet confidence settle over her. She was human, she was resilient, she was extraordinary. She turned to Ethan, a soft smile on her lips. "Thank you for showing me. I finally understand." Ethan smiled back. "You always had the answers inside you. I just helped you see them. Humanity has always been extraordinary, and so have you." Mara nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose and pride. She had spent years doubting herself, believing her value depended on appearances and perfection. Now she knew the truth. Beauty, courage, and influence came from within, and she was living proof. The archive room was quiet, but Mara's heart felt alive with understanding. She had discovered something the aliens could not measure: the extraordinary power of human resilience, courage, and meaning. And she knew, finally, that her life, her actions, her choices, and her courage had left ripples that would echo across humanity and beyond. The day had arrived. Mara stood in the observation hall of the Interstellar Council, a massive chamber where delegates from countless species gathered. She felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but this time it was tempered with clarity. She no longer doubted her worth. She no longer measured herself against the alien idea of perfection. She had seen the truth: her actions, her choices, and her courage had mattered. Ethan was at her side, offering a reassuring smile. "You're ready," he said softly. "Just speak from your heart. Let them see what humans truly are." Mara nodded, taking a deep breath. The chamber was vast, filled with delegates from dozens of species. Some were familiar, others were strange beyond comprehension. Tall, shimmering beings floated above the floor, while multi-limbed creatures observed her with curious, unblinking eyes. The council's leader, a towering figure with translucent skin that shimmered like liquid light, gestured toward her. "Mara of Earth," it said in a voice that echoed in everyone's minds, "you have been requested to address the council regarding the ongoing human-alien collaborative missions." Mara stepped forward. She felt the weight of the room, the thousands of eyes, and yet she was not afraid. She remembered the archive, the countless recordings of human courage, resilience, and compassion. She remembered Ethan's words: "Humans inspire by their actions, not their appearances." She began. "Honored delegates, I speak today not to boast of human perfection, for humans are far from perfect. We make mistakes, we fail, we age, but we endure, we care, we inspire. That is what defines us. That is what makes humans extraordinary." A ripple of murmurs went through the chamber. The aliens had never heard this perspective expressed with such calm confidence. They had studied humans for decades, trying to understand why they could inspire, adapt, and endure in ways no algorithm could predict. And now the explanation came from one human, one who embodied those qualities. Mara continued, her voice steady. "You have observed our work, our decisions, our efforts in crises. You have studied our successes and failures, trying to model them. And yet you could not explain why humans perform as we do. You could not predict why courage, compassion, and resilience arise when needed most. That is because these qualities are not mechanical. They are human. They are born from choice, from empathy, from the will to care when it is hardest. The chamber was silent. Aliens, no matter how advanced, could not compute the truth of her words. They could measure perfection, symmetry, and efficiency, but they could not measure the influence of genuine courage, compassion, or hope. Mara looked out at the delegates, meeting their gazes one by one. I stand here not as a model of perfection, nor as a flawless human. I am ordinary in appearance, flawed in experience, and marked by age. Yet in these imperfections I have found meaning. In these imperfections, humans create impact. In these imperfections, we inspire. That is the beauty of humanity, not our symmetry, not our youth, not our flawless appearances. Our beauty is endurance. Our beauty is courage. Our beauty is choice. The delegates remained motionless, absorbing her words. Some tilted their heads, processing the unfamiliar concept. A few transmitted neural patterns to each other, trying to quantify the human quality she described. The patterns didn't make sense. The concept of beauty through influence and endurance was not something they could encode. Mara's voice grew firmer. You may not understand us. You may never fully predict our actions or the strength of our choices. But observe this. Humans inspire when no one expects it. Humans persevere when hope seems lost. Humans act with empathy when efficiency would demand otherwise. These qualities cannot be copied, measured, or fully understood. And yet they shape worlds, they build alliances, they save lives. She paused, letting the words settle. Across the room, subtle changes could be seen in the alien delegates. Neural scans, body language, and subtle energy emissions indicated reactions unfamiliar to their own kind: awe, curiosity, and even uncertainty. Mara noticed, a quiet satisfaction forming in her chest. The aliens could not fully understand, but they felt the truth of her words. Ethan watched from the side, proud. He had guided Mara to this moment, but now she shone on her own. The ripple she created in the council chamber would extend beyond this meeting. The aliens could not explain why humans had influence, but they could not deny it. Mara raised her hand slightly. I am not here to claim superiority. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes. We fail. We falter. But even in our failures, we persist. Even in despair, we act. That is what I offer this council, the truth that humans are defined not by appearances or algorithms, but by our choices, our courage, and our endurance. A soft hum filled the chamber. The aliens were not speaking. They were processing, trying to reconcile their observations with the undeniable impact of humans. Mara felt the shift, a subtle, collective acknowledgement that humans had a unique place in the interstellar community. One of the council members, a tall being with crystalline limbs, transmitted a question directly into her mind. Why does your imperfection increase your influence? Why do we observe that humans with age, scars, and flaws inspire more than the flawless? Mara smiled softly. She had anticipated this question. Because humans create meaning where none exists. Because humans persevere when others falter. Because our imperfections remind others that hope and courage are choices, not gifts of birth. That is why influence comes from those who are flawed, who have endured, who have lived fully. The crystalline delegate paused, neural patterns slowing, indicating contemplation. Mara's answer could not be coded into their systems, but they understood its truth instinctively. Something had shifted in the chamber. The alien delegates could not quantify it, but they felt it. Mara turned her gaze outward, addressing all the delegates again. You may record, measure, or analyze our actions. You may never fully understand why humans inspire or endure. But know this, we will continue to create meaning, to act with courage, to inspire hope. That is who we are. That is what makes humanity extraordinary. The chamber was silent, the weight of her words settling over the assembly. Aliens from different systems transmitted observations to each other, trying to capture her essence. But Mara was human. She could not be contained in data streams or algorithms. Her words had created something living, a truth the aliens could feel but not fully comprehend. Mara stepped back, breathing deeply. She felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense of completion. The years of doubt, the moments of insecurity, the fears that she was no longer valuable, all of it dissolved in this moment. She had shown the council the truth of humanity and in doing so had recognized her own worth. Ethan approached her quietly. "You did it," he said, his voice soft. "You've shown them what humans really are, and you've shown yourself." Mara looked at him, her eyes shining. "I understand now. I've spent so long thinking my value depended on appearances or perfection, but it doesn't. It depends on what we create, the lives we touch, and the courage we show." Ethan nodded. "Exactly, that's human beauty." The chamber remained quiet, but Mara noticed something remarkable. Alien delegates were recording her words, analyzing her actions, and even though they could not fully explain it, they were transmitting admiration and respect. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans were being understood in a way the aliens had never predicted through the ripple of Mara's influence. A voice echoed softly in the hall, translated for all to understand. "Humanity is extraordinary. Imperfect, enduring, courageous. Their beauty lies in choice and influence, not symmetry or youth." Mara's heart swelled. She had spoken the truth of humanity, and it had reached beyond what anyone could measure. She was ordinary in appearance, flawed in experience, yet extraordinary in influence. She had inspired not only humans but aliens as well. Ethan smiled, watching her reaction. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "The world, the galaxy, is learning to see humans as we truly are." Mara exhaled, letting the weight of her journey settle. Years of doubt and self-questioning melted away, replaced by clarity and pride. She understood now that her worth was never measured by appearances or alien standards. Her worth was in her actions, her courage, and her ability to inspire others. And in that moment, Mara felt truly beautiful, not because of symmetry, youth, or perfection, but because of endurance, courage, and influence. The council remained silent, and yet in their silence, Mara felt a quiet acknowledgement of humanity's place in the universe. The aliens could not measure it, could not predict it, and yet they recognized it. The beauty of humans was alive, undeniable, and extraordinary. Mara turned to Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. I never knew. I never knew I could matter this much." "You always did," Ethan said. "You just needed to see it for yourself." Mara smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached her eyes. For the first time in years, she felt the full weight of her humanity not as a flaw but as a strength. Imperfect, enduring, courageous, and inspiring. Beautiful in a way no alien could measure, yet impossible to deny. And in that moment Mara understood fully. Humans were extraordinary, and she too had always been extraordinary. The council observed, silent but changed, and Mara finally allowed herself to feel it: pride, wonder, and the quiet joy of knowing that humanity's true beauty was seen at last.